Hi folks, hope you're keeping well. And those that know me, yes, it's that old fart, Richard Gagan, still around. Yes, trying to be the oldest, or probably is the oldest in the industry, yet still on the tools. But anyway, enough of me. What's this video all about? Well, about 5 years ago, I was doing seminars on behalf of White Technologies. Thank you, Leon. And we also were working with Simon Humphries at Promax. And I decided to do a little video the one day on a day off and getting a bit bored. So I made up a video of Sky Q, what it actually looked like as regards its user bands on Spectrum Analyser, and what the signals were like going into the Sky Q box. It was only a very quick knocked up video, but it's been there for 5 years. And I did say I was going to edit it, but never got round to it. You know what it's like, folks. We're always busy, aren't we? The boss always wants another job doing. Anyway, I decided that basically there was a few things missing from the video. One was basically what user band does, sort of thing, what it looks like exactly. And I made a short video which will follow this little speech that hopefully will be of use to you in that sense. And you can also have a look at the other one, which has been on YouTube for some time, the one I made 5 years ago, just talking about, and follow it up with looking at that afterwards. So really this is a video basically to explain about user bands used in satellite technology, whether it be going to a Sky Q box or a Freesat box. So I hope you enjoy it. If you've got any questions anytime, just get in touch with me, tvconnect@btconnect.com, or give me a call, and if I'm available, I'm not up the ladders painting the ceiling for the missus. I'm going to keep them happy, aren't we? Yeah, I'll answer the phone and willingly have a chat with you. And on Thursday, it's actually the CAI show at Birmingham, and perhaps I'll see you there if you manage to see this video beforehand. Take care, folks. Look forward to seeing you sometime, and keep in touch. Here we go with the video. If I can learn how to save this video, that is. This slide shows you 3 of the 4 user bands used by a Freesat PVR receiver, and what we've done is we disconnected the vertical low signal going into the DSCR. Now that has resulted in 2 of the user bands being shown here, the one on the left and the one on the right, basically have not got any signal in them because they're trying to look at vertical low signal, which is not actually coming into the DSCR. So it's ended up with the shape that they are, i.e. they look a bit like a Freeview multiplex signal, got flat tops. The reason being is it's just purely a user band that you're looking at, got no transponders in them, and consequently no digital information, just purely like a taxi in a way without a passenger. However, if you look at the center user band, you see it's got a different shape, and the reason being is that is actually got a satellite transponder number 7, which is on horizontal high, inserted into it. So it's actually like a taxi, but it's got a passenger in a way, the passenger being the transponder that you require for whatever purpose, whether it's recording or viewing on the Freesat receiver. And because it's got information there, it's able to give you MER readings, link margin and BER, etc., which if it had no transponder in it, you wouldn't have any digital information. All you would have is a power level, which would be the power level of the user band. Just one thing to point out to you, the one on the right is not quite as flat as the one user band on the left hand side. The reason being is that little bit of, shall we say, round shape at the top of the user band is a bit readings, link margin and BER, etc. Which if it had no transponder in it, you wouldn't have any digital information. All you would have is a power level, which would be the power level of the user band. Just one thing to point out to you, the one on the right is not quite as flat as the one user band on the left hand side. The reason being is that little bit of, shall we say, round shape at the top of the user band is a bit of bleed over from one of the other bands. So although it should be looking at a vertical low signal, it's actually got inside it just a small amount of a other transponder. That's quite normal if you basically hasn't got the signal that it's looking for, i.e. a vertical low signal. Things to be aware of as well is a Freesat receiver uses a different set of user bands to what Sky UK uses, and that tends to fall into 4 of the user bands used either on EN50607 or EN50494. So just be aware of it. The user bands are a different frequency compared to a Sky Q box. If you want to view the signals going to the satellite receiver, then you will need a two-way splitter that will DC pass from the outputs to the input, and also mustn't be a terrestrial one because you want to pass signals that go up as high as 2400 megahertz, although you can get away with one that goes up to 2150. You also need a DC blocker. The DC blocker you fit on the lead going into your spectrum analyzer. That is to stop the spectrum analyzer controlling the DSCR. You want the satellite receiver to control what signals is being sent from the DSCR. In this particular case, we're using the HD Ranger to monitor a Sky Q box which is set to SCR mode. And what you do first is you go into settings, which is a setting button down on the right hand side of the spectrum analyzer. In the case of the HD Ranger, it's got like a cogwheel shape, which some of you are familiar as a settings button on your laptop, for example. Once you go into that, select SCD2/EN50467, which is the standard for Sky Q. Once you've gone on a little bit further in that menu, make sure that EN50467 is switched on, select configuration, and then select Sky Q mode. And that will set up your spectrum analyzer to look at Sky UK user bands. Come out of that menu, and then you can press F1, and at the top there you see user band, and if you select 980, that is a common one to look at, especially when you first turn on the Sky Q box. Look at that one, and that is one of the early user bands that it uses. The next one up is 1030, which is 50 megs further up the band. That will come into operation as well. So those two are the particular ones that are used, particularly when you're just playing back, or just watching one channel. One of those user bands will carry the EPG electronic program guide. The other one will probably be on whatever you're watching. Then if you go to record and you're not using the same transponder, i.e. if you want to record BBC 2 but you're on ITV, that will mean you need to look at a different transponder. then what will happen is it will produce another user band, and by using that F1 you can go into there and select the other user band to look at. And the important thing is to remember, when you've finished, if you're going back to conventional mode, you've got to switch off that EM50467. So again, go into the settings key, switch it off, and the other thing is unplug from the DSCR and plug back in again, and then it will go back to conventional mode, unless you've got the Sky Q box still set in the SCR mode and connected, in which case it will then go back to using user bands. This slide is pretty much similar to the previous slide, except for one thing. We are basically looking at signals going to a Freesat PVR, and consequently you need to go to a different set of settings on your Promax. You need to go to, again, settings, but this time you select SCD EN50494, switch it on and come out of that menu. Then if you go into F1, you can select the different user bands for that particular standard. You would notice probably that it's got a different set of frequencies, such as 1210, 1240, sorry, 1210, 1420, 1680 2040 as a set of 4, because the Freesat PVR will always have 4 user bands switched on, and it's a good way of identifying that basically you've got a Freesat box connected to it. If you happen to be in the Horizon, not sure what cable you're using, if you're not sure whether it's the Sky Q box connected or a Freesat, you will see with a Freesat box there's always 4 user bands there. Even if you're not recording any programs, there will be 4 user bands. It's just the way they set the Freesat box up. Again, when you finish, don't forget to switch off EM50494 and unplug from the DSCR and plug back in again. So pretty much the same as the previous one, except you're only looking at 4 user bands and it's a different standard, i.e. it's a 50494 instead of Sky UK. This slide shows us monitoring a Sky Q box again from a DSCR. Same setup, except for one thing. We got a Rover TAB7. That's to keep Gino at Rover happy. Sorry, Mr. Simon Humphreys from Promax, but I think we ought to cater for those people who've got a Rover as well as the Promax. And my apologies to Televez. Not used to using the Televez, so I can't advise on that particular one. Perhaps you might lend me one and I'll add it to the slideshow. Anyway, moving on. Right, same setup, DC blocker, feeding spectrum analyzer from a 2-way splitter, and DSCR feeding the 2-way splitter, and the second output going to a Sky Q box. On the Rover TAB7, press the home button to get the home menu. That's the bottom left. I think it's marked off and on. Then select special function. Select at the top of the display satellite SCR stroke DCSS. Select LMB type, and then you must set it to DSCR Sky UK. It must be the Sky UK one, because there is another Sky one on there, but it's Sky Italia. So make sure you're on the UK one. Then select band, and basically you can then input user band N15, which is 980 megs. Again, I've chosen 980 megs because that's one of the early user bands that comes up on your spectrum analyzer. If you go to spectrum, you can basically monitor that user band, or if you go to satellite, you can basically look at the viewing of the digital signals within that user band, hopefully. And coming back to the spectrum, if you want to use a different user band, just put your finger over the user band that you want to look at. You might have to centralize the marker by turning the go to user band mkr.fr, which is at the top of your spectrum display. Go into there and then rotate the big knob, and then it will hopefully centralize as you turn it into the center of the user band. And then you'll be monitoring at a different user band. As I said before, it's probably going to be 1030, 15 megs up from 980. Have I got that right? Yep. Because those are the first two that tend to come on. And again, if you revert back to conventional mode, disconnect your DSCR feed and reconnect. Right, we basically got a slide here very similar to what we had earlier, where we were monitoring the Freesat PVR, except to use a Rover TAB7 this time. What you need to do is basically go to the home menu, select special function, select SAT SCR/DCSS, and then highlight L&B type, select Inverto DCSS, and then select the band. Typical one to use on the Freesat PVR is 1210, which is user band 1, because you're now using the different standard, which is EM50494, or it could be EN50607, by the way. And then you can view the different user bands, and again you can put your finger on the user band in the spectrum mode that you want to view, centralize on it, especially if you've got big fingers like me, that move it over the marker by using the marker FR button and rotating the big knob. And once again, once you've finished, revert back to conventional mode by disconnecting the DSCR. Now here's an interesting slide. This was taken some time ago and is on the main video that I did, just basically showing you how to use the Promax, and I was on the Sky Q box. Quite a long video. This is one of the last slides in there. It shows 6 user bands in total. We got 3 recording. The one marked user band 16, that's the second one in on the left hand side of the screen, is the electronic program guide one. User band 19 on the right there is what we were watching on the main TV, and user band 20 was MTV on a mobile phone using the Sky app. You can't actually see a picture of MTV because it's encoded, but you can read all the digital measurements. So you've got the MER up there, 14 dB, which is good, the link margin of 9, your bit error rates, and that carriage of noise, ignore that one. Waste of time these days because you're dealing with digital signals. The MER is the important one. So the other thing is, little note at the bottom there as regards using a two-way splitter. But if you're actually monitoring a HD plus box, use a three-way splitter, because if you remember rightly, you chaps that are used to setting up a Sky HD box in single cable mode, you basically come in with a single cable from your DSCR, and then you basically go through a two-way splitter normally, one going into output going into SAT1 and the other one going into SAT2. But because we're monitoring it, we use a three-way splitter, again with a DC blocker on the feed to, in this case, the Promax. And that gives you an example how you can do that. Now, talking of Sky Plus box, you notice actually on the photo shot of the Spectrum, the highlighted bit in yellow reserved for Sky Plus, that uses user bands 3, 9, 11 or 14. Do you remember when you're setting up the Sky Plus box, you select 2 user bands, and those are reserved, those user bands, purely for Sky Plus. Like I was saying earlier, I wouldn't be surprised if that disappears in years to come when nobody's using Sky Plus anymore, and that will allow Sky then to use, I think it's a total of 16 user bands. Yeah, so you can do quite a lot with that. Am I right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yep, 16 user bands. So there we are. You could have quite a few, shall we say, mini boxes attached, doing separate viewing. There we are. Hope you enjoyed the video, and my thanks for watching.